last session we talked about some parts of the procedure. I talked about some of the important issues of the procedure. And after that, we, let's say, analyzed the paper Scaffolded Feedback, Recast, and L2 Development, the Sociocultural Perspective. We analyzed abstract, introduction, and then review of the related literature. At the end of the review section. Can you hear me? Do you have my voice clearly, appropriately?
Yes, so Doctor, we have your voice.
Yes, thank you. And
Yes,
on
clear.
page, do you have the paper I'm talking about?
Yes, Doctor, we have
Yeah,
it.
yeah. On page 421, the second column, the last two paragraphs, talk about the gap under the heading of motivation for the current study. The first paragraph is the gap, as we talked, and the last paragraph is the purpose of the study. And after that, on page 422, we have a methodology section. Here it talks about the research question is provided. Something which is not normal. The research question is not usually written under the heading of methodology. The research questions are usually written at the end of the interview. Sorry, at the end of the literature review. So here we have research questions. There are two research questions. What are the effects of scaffolded feedback and recast on the development of L2 knowledge? And the second research can do learners benefit more from scaffolded feedback than recast in terms of their L2 development. The two research questions of the study. And after that, we have the design. What is mentioned in the design? What kind of design is used in this study? I want to know your idea. Yes, Sare.
Yes, Doctor.
Rad, wait a minute. Sare, Saleh, do you have anything to say? No. Rad, yes. Let me.
Yes, Doctor. This study concerning about design, pre-test, treatment, and post-test.
It's what kind of design? It is mentioned here. An experimental
It was
design.
experimental and randomly random doctors.
Yeah.
One of two treatment groups.
Yeah, experimental design. So based on what is mentioned here, it is a kind of quantitative study employing a kind of experimental design. And when you say experimental design, it means the study has a kind of random selection of participants. And based on experimental design, it should be both random selection of participants and also a random assignment of participants into controlled and experimental groups. And as it is mentioned here, yes, pre-test, treatment, and post-test. Yeah. Any other point, any other comments with regard to the design of the study?
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, Ali Mohsen.
Yes, Doctor. There are, I think that we have two different types of research. This research is considered experimental design, as you know, Doctor. Experimental design and this involving pre-test, treatment, and post-test. The researcher usually make pre-test before teaching of the students, post-test after teaching of the student to see their different performance before and after teaching them. EFL learners randomly assigned to one of two treatment groups or one control group. Design is considered that describe how testing should be done. It's include a process for identifying test cases by give them a number steps of the to define the conditions. I think that, Doctor, what include in this design.
Okay, thank
After
you.
this, yes, Doctor. Doctor, sorry about operationalizations. Doctor, I have a question about this. If
Okay,
you don't.
we'll talk about
Okay.
operationalization. Rad, Wahab, any comment?
Yes, doctor. Here in this article, doctor, there are two treatment. One
Mm-hmm.
by using scaffolding, and the other by using recast. So
Mm-hmm.
the researcher here divided the two groups, the experimental and control group, and give a scaffold for learners and as a treatment, the first group, and the other groups give them a recast as a treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the learners in control group received no feedback for their errors by
Mm-hmm.
using recast.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, there are three groups, two experimental groups. Yeah, one is given recast, the other is scaffolded feedback, and the last group is actually a control group in which
Yes,
no
Doctor.
feedback. Yeah, Ali Mohsen.
Sorry, Doctor. I think that that it's the description of these of the steps that are followed in designing to the teacher. For example, identify the object before the beginning of any steps.
Would you
Of
please repeat yourself? I'm sorry.
Yes, Doctor. Why he choose the description of steps? Why choose them? I think
Is,
that, Doctor. Yes,
is it a,
I
is it a question? Are you asking a question?
yes, this is asked for me. I'm going to answer it, Doctor.
Uh-huh.
Yes, Doctor. He uses this description here to select the levels that are followed. I think that, and the items under each level.
Mm-hmm.
When he used this description and he was the experimental design and control group.
Of course, the researcher is supposed to elaborate on the process of selecting the participants and sampling, and at the same time talking about the design and the treatment in detail. That's actually one of the one of the major requirements of doing any kind of research and reporting. Here, what is clear is a, let's say, clear reporting of the research. The next part is related to operationalization. If I'm not mistaken, we talked about theoretical definition and operational definition. What is important in operationalization here is that the researcher tries to provide, let's say, an operational definition of the two major treatments that are going to be used in this study. One as the recast, the other as a scaffold of feedback. What is crystal clear here? Any comment do you have? Any
Sorry,
comment?
I have a
Yes,
question, Doctor, if you don't
Ali.
mind.
Yes,
Yes, Doctor.
Ali
We
Mohsen
can.
Denzine.
Yes, Doctor, if you don't mind, Doctor. We can consider the here.
Operational.
Study.
I didn't get the point you're asking, actually.
We can consider, yes, a current study. We can consider our current study here.
I don't get the point you're raising. I can understand you, Ali
Yes,
Mohsen,
Doctor. We
to be
can we
honest.
can we can say that we are going to start here by carry out or work on, Doctor.
Work on what?
In my research, in my current study,
Who?
when we are going to recast and feedback.
So what is the question you are asking, Ali Mohsen?
Yes.
So, doctor, I think he means the starting point of my research. Like we can start it from this point, from recast, or if that's what I understand from the question.
The starting point of our research. What do you mean the starting point of our research? Actually, I don't get what you mean. Ali Mohsen, can you clarify what you mean? Please do not repeat the same statement. Try to clarify. Try to elaborate on what you mean.
Yes, we can say that we are going to practice what we are going to study here with the students, with the participants.
By operationalization, let me clarify the point. By operationalization, and what is mentioned here, the researcher tried to clarify, provide example. When he says recast, an example is provided here. What happens in one of the experimental groups in this study is recast. The researcher tried to provide an example of, let's say, real example of what happens in this experimental group by recast. When he says recast, it means this. The example is provided here on page 422. Example 1, as you can see. Learner, what he thinking about, the teacher, what is he thinking about? It is an example of recast. By providing this example, actually, he is trying to operationalize what does it mean by recast. This kind of feedback is given to one of the experimental groups, and by scaffolded feedback, the next example 3, provides an example of what's going to happen or what happened, let's say, in the second experimental group by scaffolded feedback. Some levels of help will be given to the students step by step based on learners' CPD. That's the researcher is trying to provide real example of what's happening in the class to clearly describe and explain the procedure, or let's say the treatment of the study. It means this by operationalization. I don't know what you mean, Ali Mohsen, by the starting point or no carry out. I didn't get a point. I tried to clarify the point in operationalization. Mustafa Saad Hussein, what are you writing here?
Yes, doctors. And the same examples in the articles. Recast and practice. Here, yes, teachers, number 1. It should be provided gradually with more help than required. Number 2, it should be depend on the learner's need. 3, it should be of dialogues naturals. Yes, doctors?
Yeah.
This examples about the personal singular third personals. How to correct. Teacher say, does Mr. Ali ride a bike in these pictures? Learner answer, no, he doesn't. Teacher, so what does he ride? Learner, he rides a horse. Teacher, he rides a horse. This correct. That's the personal singular, third personal singular as correct about the grammatical.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment do we have?
Yes, doctor, please.
Yes, Murtaza.
Thank you very much, doctor. Sorry, doctor, it is simply a kind of, let us say, reformulation or modification, so that the writer here or the teacher or the interlocutor, let us say, it tries to elaborate and extend the conversation between he or she and the learner or students.
Which one? Recast or scaffolded feedback?
Yes, recast, of course, doctor.
Recast.
Recast, yes. trying to modify the nature of conversation by replacing the vocabularies or verbs, let us say, so that to elaborate and extend the conversation between them, of course.
It is not actually extending the conversation. What happens in recast is
Modification or
no,
reformulation, let us say.
repeating what happens in recast. If you go through some more examples, what happens in recast as a kind of feedback is that the student's sentence or a statement is repeated, the exact statement is repeated, but the error is corrected. As you can see here, the first example, what he thinking about, the same statement is repeated, but is as a verb is added. What is he thinking? No other modification, no other reformulation is done here. The same statement, as you can see, Murtaza, is repeated. The only difference
Yes.
is that something is corrected. No other change is given, no other reformulation, no other modification is given. Let's go to the second example. What the man is doing. Again, the same statement is given. What is the man doing? As you can see, no other change is given to the student's statement. It is recast actually. What happens in recast is repeating the student's statement, but the only difference is that the error is corrected. Radu, I hope.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Doctor. So here in recast, doctors, actually the researcher make it try or to make a repair for student contribution.
Mhm.
Only there is no change in or yeah, modification or
Yeah,
something like that. Just
yeah,
only make a manifestation. You can
yeah,
say that.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Thank
To
you.
repair or correct the student contribution.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Uh,
Yes, doctor.
yes, Zine.
Yes, we can see in example number 3. Our researcher try to show us the types of negotiation about negotiation moves, as we see in the
Uh-huh.
first sentence. What the boy do?
Mm-hmm.
What would you repeat if we want to uh, the move of
Mm-hmm.
the selection of the types of negotiation?
Yeah, there is a
Uh,
problem, Zine, in your connection. I can't hear you properly. If you can fix the problem, that would be much better. I can hear you.
Yes, the problem, the teacher asked the student to repeat the tense, the sentence, the
Uh-huh.
incorrect. Yes,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
in order to clarify, in order to discover, uh, give the chance to the student to discover the incorrect
Uh-huh.
speech.
At first, in level
Yes,
one, let's say, yeah. What
yes,
happens in example three as a kind of scaffolded feedback in operationalizing, let's say, ZPD based feedback. Here,
it's
yeah, a series are mentioned here on page 423, teacher learner negotiation moves. 6 levels are mentioned here. Actually, the feedback given to the scaffolded group or scaffolded feedback is based on these moves. Actually, it starts from the most implicit and a step by step. If the learner was not able to correct himself or herself, a step by step, the teacher will provide more feedback. Will go to the next level. As you can see, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and whenever the learner gets to the correct answer, was able to correct the error, the teacher stop and, let's say, withdraw the feedback. What is important here, based on this example? What is, let's say, what should be noticed is that uh, the researcher tries to provide all the detail in the procedure, in the treatment section. And you are supposed to write your treatment and procedure from A to Z, clearly and specifically. And if there is a need, please also provide example to clarify the point. As you can see here, examples are also provided to operationalize, to elaborate, to describe the methodology, the treatment, the collection, the data collection procedure of the study. Ro'et Sattar, any comment?
Yes,
No.
Doctor.
Yes, Mustafa.
Thank you. The scaffolding feedback moves started from the most implicit and progress to the most explicit content on the learner's need
course.
and developing abilities. Each incidence of scaffolding feedback could include different kinds of assistance, such as
course.
clarification request
course.
and indications of the scores of errors, explain the rules, providing this example, providing multi-linguistics informations.
Of course.
Thank you.
Of course. And as you can see on table 1, page 423, teacher-learner negotiation move. There are 6 levels, and as we move on as we move on from level 1 to level 2, 3, 4, you can see that it moves from implicit to explicit moves. Yeah, again, I'm repeating myself. The important point here is to notice the researchers attempt to elaborate and explain all the detail of the study to be understandable for the reader, and also for future researchers to be able to replicate, those who are interested to replicate, to repeat the same study with other students in other contexts, with other, let's say, variables, to be able to repeat and replicate the same study. Okay, any other comments so far? Let's go to the participants of the study. Let's go to the participants of the study. Okay. What important point is mentioned here with regard to the participants of the study?
Yes, Doctor.
Ali Mohsen, yes.
Yes, Doctor. I think here is most important. He gather information about the participants. Yes, like gender and nationality. Yes, he gather information and give in detail to get balance level, and he divided the groups into 2 and 35. Yes, and get something about ethics.
Ethics.
Yes, like consent.
Very
Yes.
good, very good.
Yes.
About consent form. Yeah.
Yes,
Students completed consent forms. What is consent form?
Yes, he get agree from the participant to know what I'm going to make a test for them to make the validity for them. To get the validity for the reader and us, Doctor.
Related to the ethics of the study. Ask the students to sign an agreement form, which is called consent form. And it means the students were informed of being involved in a research study. Yeah, thank you. Any other comment? Yes,
Doctor. Sorry. And the researcher was divided the participant in 2 groups, female and male, according to the gender.
Of course not.
Why, Doctor? Here we have female. Yes, females.
Of course not. Of course, Ali Mohsen. Of course,
yes,
students are students are not divided into male and female. What is mentioned here is that
Yes.
it is mentioning that
Yes.
I don't know how many students are male and how are female, because the, let's say, the gender is not a variable in this study. What is mentioned here is
Just
that,
number, doctor, you mean?
yes, just the
Just number.
number of
Yes.
male and
Thank you,
female
doctor.
participants are mentioned because students are not divided based on their gender. What is important here is that the researcher tried to say that the participants were selected from both male and female participants. It was the important point. If I'm not mistaken,
Yes, doctor. Just number.
as
Thank you.
yes, as far as I know, their age, their gender, yeah, the students were selected from both genders.
Yes,
Of
thank you,
course,
doctor.
yeah, they were divided into three groups. Uh, yeah. Let me ask you another question. What was the criteria, the, let's say, the first criteria for selecting the participants? Was there any criterion to select the participants? Hmm? It was mentioned here. Uh, yeah, uh, they were selected based on their performance on a TOEFL test and interview. Huh? Am I right?
Yes, doctor, that's right.
Yes, doctor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, the students were placed into these classes based on their performance on a TOEFL test and interview, and as a result, the researcher of this study selected the intact classes. It means the students has passed some tests and interview sessions to get, let's say, allowed to enter the sessions. Okay, what other important points do we have here in the participant section? Uh, the numbers in each group
Yes,
is
doctor.
mentioned. Yes, Mortaza.
Thank you, doctor. Of course, there are many important issues in this article, like the number of participants, the teachers, of course, who participated in the study,
Very
who
good. Very good.
who
Mhm,
have
go on.
MA degrees in teaching English as a foreign language,
Mm-hmm.
those teaching. So they extended the speech and they participated, and of course, this if this happens, we'll get, of course, we'll have a precise results or findings, let us
Very
say.
good.
The,
Very
the
good.
researcher here was advocately frank to mention everything in the study.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very good. Yeah. Not
Thank
only
you.
the students who
But
participated in this
teachers, of
study,
course.
yeah, but also the teachers who were also involved in the process, as the teachers of the classes are mentioned. Yeah, two MA, female MA, let's say, experienced teachers who participated in this study. Yeah, both MA degree in TEFL and a minimum of 4 years of language teaching served as interlocutors during the treatment sessions. They were chosen. The reason for being chosen, that they were chosen for their knowledge and interest in corrective feedback research, as established through interviews. All three interlocutors met several times. Yeah. Who are the two experienced teachers along with the author of the study, the researcher? They will become three. All three interlocutors met several times prior to the study to discuss research objectives and procedures, and for 2 1-hour training sessions to practice providing the form of corrective feedback assigned to them within the study. Very clearly mentioned, yeah, all the participants of the study, and yeah, about the training sessions that the teachers, two experienced teachers, along with the author of the study, actually 3 interlocutors, met several times and had 2 training sessions to practice the corrective feedback they were supposed to provide to the students. Very clearly, all the details. Rafah Malik, any comments? Rafah Malik.
Yes, doctor.
Yes, Ali Mohsen.
Sorry, doctor. We have age here. Age about we have age of, from 4 years to 6 years. I think we have age.
4 years to 6 years. What do you
Yes.
mean? Where is it?
We have age participant here.
Age of participants.
Yes.
Yeah.
4 to 6 years. I think that we have here.
Yeah. The age range of the participant is from?
From 4 to 6 years. I think that.
The age range of the participants?
Yes.
From 4 to 6. Where is it mentioned?
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's
Oh.
not the age range of the participants. Their length of English study is from 4 to
Okay.
6 years.
Yes.
That's
From
not
4
their,
to 6.
yes, that's not the student's age. That's their, let's say, previous experience in English study. Yeah, from 4 to 6 years.
Yes, the time. It means time here.
Yeah, with an average of 5.2. Okay.
Sorry, doctor.
Yes, Ada.
I think there's a certain specification regarding the participant themselves. Like if we can put in our consideration the location, or I mean the geographical aspects, or psychological aspects, or demographical aspects. All this is a part of like choosing of a participant. Like if I compare the student from the countryside, different like from the student in who lives in the city. This is from like social aspects or like economical aspects. So if that's any effect of these elements that I mentioned already, that's geographical location or psychological aspects or demographical aspects, or there's not really concern according to the like researcher himself. So do we need to look at these aspects, or this we can keep ourselves away from this discrimination actually?
Of course, what you are talking about, Haydar, are some variables and sometimes important variables of some
Yeah,
sort. When you are
that's what I'm saying.
talking about psychological aspects, many psychological variables are involved in the process, and also many research studies nowadays consider those psychological variables. At the same time, yeah, some geographical variables, some geographical, let's say, differences, some geographical specifications may impact on the students' learning, and sometimes these geographical differences and geographical specifications are of concern for some researchers. Of course, when some specific aspects in some geographical locations are, let's say, used, of course, when those features are not present in other areas, of course that specific area has something unique, and
Right.
of course it deserves, let's say, a research study. When something unique, something specific, something, let's say, in English they call it one of a kind, something that is specific to a geographical area, and something that is not present in other areas can be a source of research, can be let's say source of doing a research study, of course.
Yes, that was my question actually.
Did you get a point?
Yeah, I got the point, doctor. Of course, but here we have like different quality of the students. Is that effect on the area of the research?
Of
Like,
course.
when I'm dealing with like students
Of course.
from like city,
Of course.
downtown. Yeah, that's
course.
the point that I try to highlight on it.
Of course, yeah. Let me provide you an example. Yeah, in some, let's say, poor areas, of course, students are not equipped well. Students are not provided with enough facilities, enough, let's say, supplementary materials when you compare students from poor areas with those who are, let's say, living in let's say richer areas. Of course, the students in those higher class of society will be equipped, will have more facilities. Yeah, there will be differences between them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Doctor.
Yeah.
Thank you for your
Welcome.
clarification, Doctor.
Welcome.
Appreciate it.
Any other comment so far? Any other comment? Any other question? And anything more? Okay. The next part, the next section here in this article is called target structure. Again, another important issue, something which is missed in many studies, many research studies. Select specific, let's say, grammatical, morphological, syntactic features, and no reason, no justification is mentioned why this specific feature is selected for this study. What is the reason for selecting this specific feature for the study? Why this feature and not other features? That's the real question, why you are selecting this feature from among many, let's say, grammatical structures. The question will be, for example, why did you select, I don't know, article the as the target structure of your study? Why didn't you select the article a as the target structure of your study? What is mentioned here is really revealing, and a very good example is provided here for selecting the target structure of the study. The study's, let me read some parts. The study's linguistic target was English WH question form. For previous studies, yeah, some previous studies on WH forms are also mentioned. Several syntactic operations which may pose difficulty for L2 learners are involved in WH question formation, such as W fronting, auxiliary verb inversion, and do support. Several studies of corrective feedback have also examined the effect of feedback on the acquisition of question forms. The choice of target was made after consulting with several EFL teachers in the institute that hosted the study, who had identified WH question forms as problematic for their immediate learners, especially when they were used communicatively in speech. Beyond this learner needs, WH question forms are relatively easy to elicit in meaning-focused tasks. During the treatment sessions, learners who either failed to produce a WH question form or produce an ungrammatical form received feedback according to their group designation. Actually, the reason for selecting this specific grammatical structure for the purpose of this study is mentioned here, and also some citations are given. Yeah. Any comments so far? Any comment? Any point? Any question do we have? Okay.
Sorry, Doctor.
Yes, say that.
Why do they criticize the recast? I mean, what is the negative point? Some writers or some researchers, they criticize the recast because I was like checking through the article and I found there's some criticism.
You're asking
see,
that you're asking some technical questions. If I talk about recast and the problems of recast, that would be a bit about beyond the let's say focus of our today's discussion. I will talk about it.
All right.
Do you have anything to say? Are you
No, actually, I was like going through the article and I found there's some criticism from some
Yeah,
writers,
yeah,
some researcher about this recast
yeah,
that's regarding to feedback. I mean,
yeah.
but actually, honestly, I didn't get the point. I mean,
Hmm.
why they didn't criticize it, things
Yeah,
is not
yeah,
related to like.
yeah,
So that's what I want to understand it from you. Like,
yeah,
that's why I raised my question to
yeah.
understand why
A very good
they.
question is raised, of course.
Yeah.
A
Yes.
very good question is raised. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Based on some I'm sorry, based on some observational studies, Lister and Ranta, 1997, Lister and Ranta at 1997 published a paper, let's say, state of the art article was published. Based on their observation of different classes, they noticed that recast from amongst, if I'm not mistaken, 6 or 7 types of feedback that was provided to the students based on their observation, they found that 6 or 7 types of oral feedback that was provided to the students. Recast was the, let's say, most frequently used type of feedback. If I'm not mistaken, about more than 50% of the feedback, more than 50%, more than half actually, more than half of the feedback types provided to the students was recast. And surprisingly, the least effective type of feedback based on their results was most frequently used and at the same time least effective type of feedback from among 6 or 7 types of feedback provided to the learner was recast. That was really interesting. Most frequently used, more than half of the CF or corrective feedback types provided to learners was recast, but it was least effective. Some reasons were mentioned. The main reason, the main reason mentioned was noticing hypothesis, was based on noticing hypothesis. It was mentioned that it seems students were not able to identify the let's say treatment or correction in the recast. It seems some of the students were not able to find the correction in the recast, and they thought that the teacher is repeating the same statement produced by the students. That was really interesting. They found that some of the students thought that the teacher is repeating the students' exact statements, exact sentence without any correction. That was related to the noticing. The students were not able to in this regard, they proposed some modification to the recast. They stated that for recast to be more effective in correcting the student's error, there should be some modifications. For example, when the teacher is providing recast to the students, try to change the intonation in your let's say recast. Some ups and downs in your intonation may show, may make it clear to the student that something new is given. And at the same time, some forms of recast are mentioned. Some talked about partial recast. Said that instead of repeating students' complete statement, complete sentence, select that specific part and try to be a bit more specific to make it noticeable to the learners. That's actually the main criticism, hey, that to cut it short, not going to the detail of the story, to let's say cut a long story short. That's the main criticism leveled against recast, which is called noticing. Students sometimes are not able to notice the feedback, the correction in the recast, and they thought that the teacher is repeating their own sentence without any change. That's the main criticism leveled against recast. And yeah, many studies and within the corrective feedback field revealed that recast is least effective when used in some experimental studies. Other types of, let's say, feedback were more effective than recasts, and also the findings of some experimental studies also proved the let's say that recast is less effective than many other types of feedback. What can I say to you right now with regard to your question, Haydar? Is this if you are interested, many papers published in the feedback can also help.
Okay, dear professor, I do really appreciate it. What is your opinion, uh, regarding? Yeah, I mean, I've heard all that what you said, which is very interesting. But I need your personal opinion about like the criticism regarding the recast and feedback, and how we can like link both of them together. Thank you, dear professor. I'm sorry for like asking many
My
questions, but I want to
opinion.
understand like things be a little bit messed up on me, so I try to separate things and understand deeply. So be patient with me. Uh,
No, you're
um,
asking some good questions actually.
so that's I
My
want to hear
you're
your
asking
personal
about
opinion.
my opinion on the issue.
Right.
Actually, my opinion comes from my experience, and also
Yeah.
comes from, let's say, my research findings. Actually, it seems, yeah, recast is still from among the most frequently used types of feedback used by EFL teachers specifically. And to be more effective, it seems some modifications should be done, as I told, to make it more effective. Repeating change students may miss the issue. To be more effective, yeah, recast some modifications should be done in recast, and employing simple recast without any modification, without any change in the intonation, or without any stress on the feature, uh, yeah, is not enough. And the findings of many studies within the feedback also proved the issue to be correct. Yeah, thank you very much for your comment. Any other comment? Any other question so far? Yeah. Let's move on to the next part of the article: corrective feedback treatment, instruments, and procedure. Yeah. First, it talks about a task here. Uh, the task which was used here in this study is mentioned. An example is also provided on page 100, on page 423. It is called as a spot the difference task. And it seems the focus of the task is to provide a context within which students will be able to produce WH questions, and as a result, the teacher can provide feedback in one experimental group recast and the other scaffolded feedback. The example of the task was explained in detail, and also an example of the type of task is provided. At the same time, in the next section, testing instruments and procedure, two instruments that were used in the study, two main instruments of the study are mentioned. What are the instruments of the study? What instruments are used in this study? Testing instrument, measurement instruments that are used in the study. What testing instruments are used in this study?
Yes, doctor.
Yes, Zine.
Yes, the researcher used two instruments.
Of course.
The first, yes, the ultimate grammatical judgment test, and the sample of it is UGGT.
Very
And
good.
the second one, an oral production task, OPT.
Very
And
good.
both tests were performed in a pre-test and post-test sequence.
Yeah.
All learners in all three groups took the pre-test 2 days before the treatment session, and the post-test 2 days after the last treatment session.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Thank you, Zine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. The first is untimed grammaticality judgment test. Yeah, abbreviated as UGJT. Yeah, it was explained how many sentences was given to the students, how many sentences were given to the students, the items. Yeah, and the students were supposed to find the ungrammatical statements in the test, and at the same time oral production test, or OPT, was used. Also the oral production test was explained in the next section of the article. Yeah, very clearly, as you can see, the methodology of the paper was elaborated about the participants, about the instruments, about, I don't know, the types of tasks used, about the treatment that was given to each group of the study was provided here clearly and specifically. Yeah, a very good example was provided here. Is any comment, any question so far? Any comment, any question? Okay. Thank you very much for your participation and for your cooperation in our discussion. At the beginning of the session, we were about 36 people. Right now we are 24. I think right now I should read students or call students' names again to see those who are present, those who are 24. Yeah.
No good idea, doctor. No
Good idea.
No.
Because at the beginning of the session we were about 36. Right now 24, 25. What happened?
Say blow up.
Okay. From now on, the term is finished, but